Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Tokamaish TV. Today we're going to be talking about Nintendo, and they're up to their old tricks again. Looks like they're ripping people off, so we're going to get right into it.
I could probably build an entire second career just making videos about Nintendo's bad behavior. But the one we're going to look at today is one that's going to hit the wallet of nearly every Switch 2 owner. The completely unnecessary left turn into proprietary bill that they have taken with the Switch 2. While the rest of the game console industry has made serious strides toward universal standards and interoperability, this dock is a classic example of locking down a product, not for a good reason, but just because we can, or to make a buck, or because, I don't know, f you. And the bigger problem here is that—
Wow, that is so not fair to the customer, because as a customer, something like that is going to make you feel angry because you got to then turn around and then spend more money. It's like a leech just constantly feeding off you.
that Nintendo is a market leader, and their actions may very well embolden other tech companies to do the same. Check this out. This dock here works perfectly on the Switch 1, and in fact, every other device on the table. And the Switch 2? Oh, no. That's the only device we were able to find that it won't work with. All of these docks and dongles you're looking at now.
That's messed up. They're locking you in. They're creating like an ecosystem where you can only use their proprietary things to power it on and to display the display. Wow, so that's really messed up, because that means they're programming it that way so that it won't work with the other HDMI cables to give you the display. That's crazy.
Will work with the Switch 1 or with your laptop, but you can't use them on your Switch 2. It would seem then that Nintendo has opted to make their new universal serial bus device a little less universal. The question is how? I mean, it's still got a regular Type-C connector, so what's happening?
To find out, we have the Infineon Protocol Analyzer, a little device that intercepts the communication between two USB-C PD devices and allows us to see exactly what Nintendo has done.
Oh, here we go. Normal. Vendor-defined message. But what the heck is a
Yep, so they program it not to work with other peripherals.
vendor-defined message? And what is this message from our sponsor? Corsair. Their Xenon Edge touchscreen display can sit anywhere on your desk, it can mount magnetically to a metal surface, and can even be placed inside your case. Get instant visibility on system metrics, chat channels, or just have your favorite memes on loop. Check it out using our link
Oh, that's cool as a novelty item just to have on you, just to look at.
in the video description.
Let's take a step back and explain the wonders of USB in the modern age, which is going to give us some additional context as to why we should be especially mad at Nintendo. Since its inception in 1996, USB has been a consistent standard that's replaced many connectors with one easy to insert connector. There's been tons of revisions with increases in power and data delivery, as well as more and more functionality with each update, all while maintaining a pretty robust backwards and forwards compatibility. It's honestly a pretty impressive collaboration in an industry of min-maxing profiteers. Arguably, its biggest change came with the introduction of the USB-C standard, which was partially intended to make all USB devices just a little more universal, although there's definitely been some snags in the decade plus since the update. In an effort to reduce the amount of—
Yes, thank goodness for USB-C, because it made it so much easier to just plug in my phone, easy to charge. I don't gotta look and see with the light on. I could just plug it in any direction. It made things so much more simpler. It sucked having to constantly just jiggle the damn USB A and B's and micros. It was super annoying. C made it super easy.
USB-C devices that may fry each other because of voltage incompatibilities, the USB-C PD, or power delivery standard, was released. As many of you will know, that's a protocol for negotiation between two devices to communicate their power and data capabilities. Lucas from the labs just wrote a really fantastic article about this handshake, and if you want a little more detail, you should definitely give that a read. For now, let's test what's actually happening with the Switch 2. To understand what we're working with, let's test out the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 dock first. And we have image. Wow, these two devices meant to work together.
Of course, it's supposed to work. They're built for each other.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at what all these messages mean. This interface can be a little bit overwhelming if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. The main thing to know is the message column is the messages that are being sent in between the two docks. in the power role, we have SNK, which is our sync device, and SRC, which is our source device. In this case, our source is our dock, and our sync is the switch. So the first thing we're seeing is the source offering up its capabilities. So when you look in this pane over here, you can see that it's offering 5, 9, and 15 volt power. Good CRC, which you'll see all the way down, just means Roger. Then our switch is talking, SNK, and it's looking for object position 3, which is the 15 volts of power. We get a Roger, we get an accept from our dock, we get another Roger. Next we have power supply ready, meaning it's get ready to deliver its power. We got our Roger, and then we have a data role swap. So now the switch is switching roles, and it's kind of taking control of the interaction. Then we get our VCon swap, and to oversimplify, it's just another part of kind of the data role swap. We got good, power supply ready. And then we have a little soft reset where you can see this SOP prime. That's actually when...
All right, so it looks like it just goes through a bunch of presets and cross checks to make sure it's verifying that device is what it is before it actually displays the image.
The USB devices are talking to the intermediary devices. So it might be talking to a cable that's in between if it's an active cable, or part of the dock or something. So right now it's doing a little soft reset for those. Then we have our vendor defined messages, and you can see in this pane, it's asking for discover identity. And this is the first time that our dock and our switch are going to communicate, hey, you Nintendo? Are you a Nintendo device? Vendor defined doesn't mean that it's like an exclusive lockdown thing necessarily, but it can. And then in quick, basically we have these vendor defined messages where the dock and the switch are going to try and negotiate their DisplayPort mode. It takes clearly a lot of vendor defined messages, and this is sort of where the things become a little unusual. In this case, it's going to work, and we get a display on our screen after they've negotiated their modes. But let's take a look at what happens when we connect the switch to a dock that won't work. Now we're going to test out this pretty generic Nucleum USB Type-C dongle. You can immediately see things are a little bit different. Our dongle gets its source capabilities. The switch requests based on that. We get our power supply ready, VCon swap, and then the data role swap. And you can see that it's actually in a different order. The VCon and the data role swap are in a different order, which ends up in a reject from the switch. They try this a couple times. Eventually it works. Power supply, we do our little intermediary soft reset. And then we do it all again. And that's a little bit strange. Why are we doing it all again? Okay, yeah. We're getting to our intermediary reset, and then we're into our vendor defined stuff. We're trying to find who's talking to who in specific. Are these Nintendo products? And then we're discovering the modes. And this is generally the DisplayPort modes. In this, the switch is asking for a specific mode. We get connected, we get UFD connected, and then it kind of just like fizzles out, and then it sort of stops communicating. And that's going to be kind of a reoccurring pattern where things don't happen in the same order, things get confused, and then the communication kind of just ceases. Let me show you on a monitor. This one's even more clear why things aren't working. They're trying to do the data role swap, and there's a rejection happening from the switch. These two buddies not working together so good. But we're still seeing our pattern that the switch has a little bit of a difficulty negotiating when things don't go exactly as it's expecting. That means only hardware with the exact validated negotiation can decode these messages and successfully negotiate a display out from the switch too. And this isn't a technical issue with USB itself. Most devices can navigate these operations and orders. And
all things are pointing to Nintendo is purposely locking it down so it doesn't work with other things.
Make it work. Rather, I think the most likely answer here, and the one that avoids making claims we can't absolutely confirm, is that Nintendo made sure that it worked on their own devices and then stopped their efforts there. That means that even if a third-party dock has the correct power delivery and video output capabilities, it just won't fully function with the Switch 2 unless it can successfully communicate using Nintendo-specific undisclosed protocols. This communications lockdown definitely could be malicious, but I wouldn't feel confident taking Nintendo to court about it. But I'm not sure I would chalk it up to pure carelessness either. The most likely scenario, in our opinion, is that this is an example of tactical laziness. What a beautiful term. Because the benefit of this
Nintendo has been doing this forever. They have been purposely been garbage because they could be way better. They own some of the best franchises in like the gaming industry, and they choose not to, for some reason, display them at their best, at their peak, where other genres that came out like that game Power World that looks way better and plays better than Pokemon. And what happened? Nintendo ended up suing that company.
Communication is so obvious. Money. You need a second dock in your house? Well, instead of using something you already have, that'll be $120 more directly to Nintendo. Thank you very much. You want to go traveling and have something more portable. Time to order another expensive Nintendo-approved accessory. It makes me wonder if we would be better if they just used a proprietary port. On the one hand, it would solve the seeming underhandedness of the issue and the ensuing consumer confusion. Everyone would have known from the get-go about the incompatibility, and maybe Nintendo could have justified it with a neat, unique feature like a locking port, all while leaving the top USB port as is for charging. But that would mean needing to develop and manufacture a proprietary port, possibly upping the price over a mass-produced generic part, with Nintendo fronting the R&D cost. And proprietary ports means that it's Nintendo's own IP, so they can set the license fee, probably upping the cost on third-party accessories. It would also mean increased e-waste long-term when there's more Switch 2 docks left than Switch 2 players. That's really not ideal. On the other hand, it's exceptionally frustrating to be able to correctly plug in your accessories and then not have them work. To be fair, that's not a Nintendo exclusive.
A lot of other devices are doing that. Apple does it. Samsung is starting to do it. A few others are making it so you have to use their proprietary things and within their own ecosystem, which is going to be super annoying. Trump needs to do something about that and stop that, because we need everything to be more universal. Each company can't have proprietary things, because then it forces you to be stuck to that one particular company when you want to move on and you can't, because this peripheral doesn't work with that anymore.
Problem. All Type-C ports and cables have not been created equal. It's an ongoing issue, but in my personal experience, the compatibility issues are generally trending towards becoming solved, not launching themselves towards totally unnecessary compatibility catastrophe, which just makes this so infuriating, especially since the Switch 2 is less capable than most modern regular Type-C devices. The charging caps out at around 15 watts, which may be good for battery health long term, but it certainly would be nice to have the option to fast charge when necessary, and variable refresh rate is currently not possible via the dock. You can only do that in handheld mode, so we're really not asking much of these.
Even Apple manages to be more universal than this crap. Apple was one of the pioneers of the industry move towards mass adoption of USB Type-C and Thunderbolt. I remember they actually took a lot of flack for being the first to ship a laptop, the 2015 MacBook, with only USB Type-C, which is especially funny when you consider how they had to be dragged kicking and screaming on the phone side. But I digress. The point is, in spite of Apple's long proud history of making things proprietary for no obvious user benefit, even they haven't gone as far as creating a proprietary handshake between their cables, their accessories, and their computers. Although, don't imagine for a
If they did, that would have been absolutely ridiculous, and they would have definitely sold way less MacBooks. Because when it comes to computers, you need to be able to connect multiple things, multiple different things, easily, seamlessly, hot swappable. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. That things need to be hot swappable, so you can just plug and play and do exactly what you need to on the fly.
second they're not capable of it. Oh God, I hope they're not getting any ideas from this. Because once Apple does something, well, the industry follows. Hopefully Nintendo doesn't have quite the same influence.
While we've harped pretty hard on Nintendo so far, we want to give credit where credit is due.
Do we?
They're helping to push the microSD Express standard into the mainstream, instead of making some expensive proprietary format like the Xbox Series or the PlayStation Vita.
Okay, that's fair. But not even everything they've done with their non-proprietary storage is good. The fact that they don't let you just dump save game files off of your system onto it is, quite frankly, offensive to me. Nintendo has angered all of us with their game prices, but here's the thing. The most that can cost me is about $80 US. That's the worst case scenario. But imagine this. I dump 300 hours into a game, and then I don't subscribe to Nintendo Online, so I can't back up my save, and then I happen to lose my Switch, a portable device. I lose 3.
That's crazy. That should not be allowed to exist. You spend all that time invested into a game and you don't really have a viable way of saving your data outside of Nintendo's platform that you have to pay for. That's crazy. That's not fair. That should not exist.
100 hours. I mean, okay, obviously I'm not being paid to game, so it's not a straightforward mathematical equation. But if we're talking about what it would cost me in my time and my personal energy to go back and get all of that back, honestly, I'd rather go to work for one day so I can buy a new fucking game versus dump another 300 hours in to get back what I lost.
So what can we do? Well, the best thing to do is not give Nintendo your money. Either wait for the next gen Yuzu or just skip Nintendo games until they fix this. That's probably the best, most impactful move you can make. But when you look at the Switch 1 and 2 sales number, it's pretty easy to feel like your wallet's boat doesn't get you very far anymore. And I don't feel any kind of moral superiority.
And between Switch 1 and 2, really and truly, not that much has changed.
For telling you to stop engaging with Nintendo's games. They are clearly making fantastic experiences that no one else can match. And I, and lots of you, want to play them. You could buy third-party options, like the Antang.
No. They have some of the best IPs and when they're nostalgia. The actual gameplay of those set IPs are a completely different story.
S3 that we're going to have linked down in the video description that somehow has the ability to speak the Switch 2's proverbial language. Who the f knows how Antank figured that out? A friend at Nintendo or on the third shift at one of the factories? Random dumb luck? Regardless, it works for now. Nintendo could technically alter that deal on a whim by changing their protocols in a neat little game of cyber cat and mouse, but what we'd all really like is for this video to be out of date as soon as it hits the internet. It seems like Nintendo has it within their power to push a couple of firmware updates to stop this baloney. Baloney? Like this Segway sandwich. To our sponsor!
Vessi, summer is the time for beaches, strolls in the park, and
That's it. Nintendo is absolutely ridiculous. This needs to be stopped. This cannot be allowed to keep on happening because if they do, it's just only going to cycle and get worse and worse, and they're going to feel more entitled to further lock down more simple features of the device. Like, you're going to have to pay to save your game. Oh, man, that's crazy. You buy a game, you spent $80 for it, then you got to spend more money just to save it. That is ridiculous.